Es Crimson Desert. Y no voy a mentir, yo me puse la meta de cada gameplay que salga de Crimson, verlo. Así que, by the way, esto es un hands-on preview de Crimson. Así que quizás veamos gameplay bastante repetitivo que ya he visto. Pero nada, quiero que es lo que opinan, qué es la que hay. A ver, yo no les voy a mentir. El hype con ese juego, con este juego, para mí está bien por encima. Y me refiero en cuestión de combate, en cuestión de visual, en cuestión de looting, ¿saben? En cuestión de mecánica. Wow, tiene tan... Visualmente se ve tan bien todo lo que han combinado que no voy a mentir, me pasó como Expedición 33. Que yo, todo lo que vi de Expedición 33, yo decía, diablo, Expedición 33 va a ser una bestia. Eso... Y no les miento, me senté a jugarlo y tan pronto pasó el intro nada más, yo... Esto es cinema. Esto es otra cosa. Así que nada, vamos a ver esto, ¿verdad? Vamos a darle de hablar mucha baba y vamos a ver esto rapidito. Hablamos aquí mientras vemos esto. Déjame quitarle esto, by the way, que aquí no están corriendo los FPS.
It has been almost 6 years since Crimson Desert was first revealed to the world. Across that period, developer...
¿Cuánto tiempo ha pasado? Espérate. ¿Cuánto tiempo ha pasado desde que...?
It has been almost 6 years since Crimson...
6 años. Yo no recuerdo que haya pasado tanto. ¡Wow!
Crimson Desert was first revealed to the world. Across that period, developer Pearl Abyss has shown off a huge array of ideas, mechanics, and boss battles. It's frequently been cited as something of an everything game. An open-world adventure with sky islands, mechanical dragons, wrestling moves, interdimensional gateways, interacting elemental effects, and...
Esas movidas de luchar y de wrestling. Diablo. Cuando yo vi que ese bebo hizo una combi de wrestling, que lo cogí y lo levantó y todo. ¡Boom! Yo. Olvídate de eso. No lo puedo creer.
Spider-Man web swing. But the more that's been revealed, the more there's been the sense that Crimson Desert may be a lot of pieces in need of a whole. Finding that complete picture was my main objective when I visited Pearl Abyss's studio in Seoul for this month's IGN 30.
Ok. Esta gente de IGN a veces yo sí pues se la compro, pero veo, si a ti no te gustan los RPG, no vengas a jugar un RPG. Si tú no te gustan los juegos de carro, no te vayas a hacer un review de un juego de carro. ¿Sabes?
And while I can't say I found it yet, multiple hours of hands-on playtime has revealed a game that's maybe not as strange as you'd expect. In fact, Crimson Desert feels pretty straightforward. Pearl Abyss has crafted a reasonably traditional open-world adventure, made up of multiple regions peppered with towns, outposts, and castles. There's the usual collection of main and optional quests, plus classic distractions like fishing. You can forgive them for not realizing this though. Pearl Abyss has put almost all of its promotional efforts into showcasing boss fights. Not only that, but Crimson Desert's blend of traditional medieval fantasy with sci-fi and steampunk elements does make it seem like it's been pulled in several directions at once.
In order to destroy such a weapon, you'll need to acquire Golden Star's power.
Ese gameplay es el del
When you're
Dragon.
on the ground and seeing how all these elements interact though, it doesn't feel quite so alien. The continent of Pywell is perhaps less like a typical Tolkien-esque fantasy world and more akin to Dungeons & Dragons, a setting that, in recent years, was host to a Mad Max-like vehicular chase through hell. Pearl Abyss's design team explained that they wanted Pywell to reflect the variety.
Pero vamos a ser honestos. Él dice, estos juegos es medio straightforward, pero miren ese town. Comparen ese town con el town del nuevo juego de Pokémon. Hagan la comparación, ¿sabes? No sé si se han dado la vuelta o han visto alguito, pero comparen el town.
Killer chase through hell.
Miren ese town.
Pearl design team explained that they wanted Pywell to reflect the variety of our reality, in which some countries feel much more futuristic than others. And note that some of Pywell's leaders may be more resistant to the advancement of technology than others, a conflict that'll be explored through various faction quests. All this means that the variety doesn't feel artificial or there simply for the sake of being wild, even when you're at the controls of a flying battle robot, which was, of course, designed by Dwarven engineers. The inclusion of these mechanized and steampunk elements grant Pearl Abyss the creative license to build quests that are a significant departure from any...
En verdad la combinación, como él dice, steampunk Y lo que es medieval está
we'd
nice.
see in something like Skyrim. A major part of my hands-on time involved completing a quest for Marnie, a scientific genius who cloned his own consciousness to create an AI-like entity called Hall. Naturally, the results of such an experiment have gone very wrong, and Marnie's evil digital magic twin has taken command of a flying fortress that's terrorizing Pywell's skies. Defeating Hall requires the use of a power core, which Marnie reveals is hidden inside a weapon called Golden Star. And by weapon, he means a giant mechanical dragon. While they presumably have ballistic missiles in Pywell, what with the advanced engineering and all, of course the fantasy version of a nuke is flying Mechagodzilla. All that stands between me and this winged menace is a fortress filled with angry battle robots.
Vamos acá, ay bendito. Nosotros somos free to play, así que no me presionen. By the way, ¿qué es esto? Bueno, se ve nice. Eso debe ser un juego móvil.
It appears that fortress assaults will be a significant recurring objective in Crimson Desert, considering that my hands-on time involved no fewer than 3 of them. I can see why Pearl Abyss was keen to show them off, as they are a showcase for some of the project's strongest achievements. There's a great sense of atmosphere, with a legion of men from either side battling the living hell out of each other, and you're caught in the middle of it all. Fun mechanical wrinkles add texture. During one attack, I was able to fire signaling arrows that were quickly followed by a bombardment of artillery, decimating enemy soldiers and reducing buildings to splinters. In another, I was able to circumnavigate the brutal melee entirely, sneaking into the castle through a crumbling wall and using the prison as a shortcut to the boss. And in my fight through the robot fortress, a backpack-mounted EMP device allowed me to fry the circuits of both the lumbering ground threats and airborne bug bots in one giant blast. There's always something new to try, something to experiment with. But as much as these fortress assaults are a demonstration of Crimson Desert's highs, they also simultaneously reveal what could turn out to be some of its biggest blemishes. Battling masses of enemies is surprisingly tedious, feeling messy and repetitive rather than an engaging chain of frontline fights. An awkward lock-on
que es repetitivo.
Feature pushed me away from one-on-one duels into a more freeform playstyle, but that came with the baggage of imprecise strikes and occasionally kicking the air instead of faces. Absolutely none of these issues hamper the boss battles, which was my only experience of Crimson Desert prior to this demonstration, and I was quite surprised at how different combat can feel in alternative scenarios, even when using the same moveset. It's in these smaller, less refined details where Crimson Desert threatens to lose itself. There are occasions where you need to pick up and manipulate objects, such as planting a banner to inspire your allies. Doing so requires standing still, turning to face the object, activating a focus mode, rapidly tapping a button to lift your target, and then finally using your telekinetic powers to manually move it. All of this is a slightly baffling annoyance when erecting flags, but it turns into a genuine frustration in the middle of a boss battle, when you're desperately trying to swing a fallen mace.
Se la doy ahí, se la doy. Diantre. Si es así de lento, chicos, porque hacen eso así de lento. Miren eso.
Move it. All of this is a slightly baffling annoyance when erecting flags, but it turns into a genuine frustration in the middle of a boss battle when you're desperately trying to swing a fallen mate.
Vamos a tener que plantar bandera también. Busque una manera, lo hacemos, está bien, pero busque una manera un poquito más rápida. By the way, yo recuerdo si se lo llegaba a ver ese boss fight. Eso también quedó bien abusador. Eso quedó bien abusador ahí. Eso quedó bien abusador.
Thankfully, no such awkward ultra hand juggling is required to extract the power core from Golden Star. As we explored earlier this month in our making of feature, this is a boss fight with a unique mechanic that must be discovered in the quite literal heat of battle. The dragon's flaming breath activates an array of pylons dotted around the arena, which then dispense EMP bombs that you can fire from an arm-mounted cannon. The system creates a repeating phase loop. Golden Star circles above, belching the flames that produce the EMP bombs that will eventually bring him crashing to the ground, where you can unleash a barrage of strikes until he reboots and begins the cycle anew. Pearl Abyss are keen to point out that you don't have to do this. You could, for instance, use lightning-reefed arrows to apply a stun, or simply chip away at his health bar with ranged attacks, but I feel
Chica, pero no spoiler la pelea, mano.
But the real enjoyment in all of Crimson Desert's boss fights have been finding the unique mechanic built into the arena or even the enemy itself. Bosses are not the only thing in need of conquering. Suspended high above Pywall are a scattering of Abyss Islands, accessed through portals that are unlocked with mysterious Abyss artifacts. These islands appear to come in multiple guises. Last year we saw that one of them is home to an alchemist called Alastin and his Library of Providence, and my hands-on session included one that was more akin to Zelda's puzzle shrines. Its checkerboard floor was essentially a room-sized circuit board in need of a total rewiring, and finding the correct path through the grid of rotating flagstones unlocks the island's treasure trove. This is...
Diablo. Esto es lo único que yo creo que yo voy a testar de este juego. Yo odio, mira, gracias que lo que es Dark Souls, Demon Souls, no tenían, bueno, tenían sus secretos y sus cosas, pero no tenían esta clase de puzzles. O sea, a mí me la pela este tipo de puzzle.
In everything from Watch Dogs to Bioshock, but I enjoyed how your equipment is integral to completing it. Your lantern illuminates the correct pathway, and your grapple hook is used to spin each tile. So while this challenge is not particularly taxing, I hope its solid foundations are the basis for more interesting puzzles that await among the clouds. When you've uncovered an Abyss Island's secrets, you can leap off the side and float down to Earth, where plenty more traditional open world fare awaits. There are towns to visit, in which you'll find shopkeepers to trade with and bounties to take on. Out in the wilderness, there are camps to clear out and roaming barbarians.
Lo mejor que para mí puede haber en este tipo de juegos son los bounties, ¿sabes? Eso es una de las mejores cosas.
Factions. From what I glimpse in the menus, there are dozens and dozens of them, although some will be more important than others, I'm told. A few have their own quest lines, such as House Wells, a family of nobles led by a duke who's lost his castle to rebel forces, a situation that's the catalyst for one of those aforementioned fortress assaults. Pearl Abyss was quick to clarify that these groups are not like Fallout's factions, and allegiances with them won't change the course of the story or impact Crimson Desert's ending, which is set in stone. And so I'm left wondering, what are the faction quests in aid of? When asked, Pearl Abyss's design team explained that they were there to ensure that the factions felt like significant actors in the plot, and that they offered more content for players to complete. That considered, I am a little apprehensive that at least some of Crimson Desert's offerings will be stuff to do rather than meaningful interlinked opportunities. That brings us back to my very first question. What is Crimson Desert as a whole? I know it's a vast open world with deep fighting game inspired combat that works better against bosses than it does against fodder. It's got spectacle laden quests that take you from in the mud castle assaults all the way up to aerial dogfights. And it's littered with good time distractions, from fishing and bounties to taming bears and buckling up in a battle mech.
Podemos que pescar. Podemos pescar. Yo soy fan de la pesca en estos juegos, para que ustedes tengan una idea.
Still waiting to discover the glue between all this that elevates an open world to new heights. Shadow of Mordor has the Nemesis system, which chains its enemies together into a foe conquering big picture. Red Dead Redemption 2's systems are united by a pursuit of realism and authenticity that makes its campaign feel like a life lived rather than a game played. And this year's Ghost of Yotai links every activity on its map to a new unlock on your skill tree, ensuring even little diversions are a growth opportunity. That's the stuff that's so far been missing from Crimson Desert's demonstrations, and the thing I hope will eventually be revealed when I get to play multiple consecutive hours rather than a collection of isolated quests and bosses. Without it, I still think Crimson Desert stands a solid chance at being an overall good time, but with it, it could become something much more special. For more from Crimson Desert, check out our combat.
Las peleas también se lo dije, aquí no íbamos a ver nada nuevo, solamente la opinión del Bebo en cuanto a si estaba bueno para él o no el juego. Él siente que, ¿cómo fue que dijo? Que era un poquito lineal y repetitivo en cuestión de las misiones de entrar a los castillos y demás. Yo voy a ser bien honesto. Se ve bien cabrón. En verdad, Crimson Desert se ve bien exagerado. Tiene par de loot. Pero vamos a ver el resultado final. Cuando salga, le voy a dar 2 semanitas. A ver qué es lo que dice la gente. Pero no me voy a spoilear. Voy a darle 2 semanitas qué dice la gente. A ver si llego a las 2 semanas. Porque estoy que lo compro ahí saliendo. Pero creo que vamos a darle 2 semanitas a ver qué es la que hay con el jueguito. By the way, viene por ahí Where's Winsmith. Que si no han visto nada de ese juego. Es un free to play. No entiendo al nivel que quieren llevar este free to play. Porque es un free to play flow Souls game. Voces. Un par de cosas. Eso sale el 14. Vamos a probarlo. A ver qué es la que hay. Mientras tanto, querido, no me voy a seguir en donde Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, X, para que vean todo lo que estamos haciendo, vacilen con nosotros, sean parte del journey. Wow. Fortnite, nuevamente los Simpsons, dense la vuelta. Si les gustan los Simpsons, el mapa está bien exagerado. No voy a mentir, el mapa está súper exagerado. Y creo que mañana van a estar tirando algo de Disney, celebrando el 70 aniversario junto con Fortnite. Así que nada, vamos a ver qué es la que hay. Los veo, corillo.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.